This is a story about a man who went from rags to riches. It's a story about hope and perseverance. The main character in this story is named Joseph. Joseph was born into poverty. His family was so poor that they couldn't afford food or basic necessities. But despite their poverty, Joseph's family was very happy. They were a close-knit group and they loved each other very much. One day, Joseph's father came up with an idea. He wanted to go to the city and try to make some money. So he packed up some food and clothes and set off on his journey. Joseph's mother and siblings were very worried about him, but they knew that he had to try to make something of himself. When Joseph arrived in the city, he was overwhelmed by the sights and sounds. There were people everywhere, and the buildings were tall and imposing. Joseph had never seen so much poverty and despair in one place. But he was determined to make a better life for himself. He started out by looking for work. He worked long and hard hours for very little pay. But he didn't care. He was just grateful to have a job. He saved up his money and eventually bought himself a cart. With a cart, he was able to carry more goods and make more money. One day, Joseph was pulling his cart through the city when he saw a group of children playing. He stopped and watched them for a while. He remembered a time when he used to play games with his siblings. He missed them very much. Suddenly, one of the children ran out of the playing area and bumped into Joseph's cart. The cart tipped over, and all of Joseph's belongings were scattered on the ground. The child was crying and was very scared. Joseph could have gotten angry, but instead, he knelt down and asked the child if he was hurt. The child shook his head. Joseph helped him pick up his things and dusted him off. Then he continued on his way. As he walked, he thought about the child. He realized that he didn't have anyone to take care of him. Joseph took the child home with him. He gave him food and clothes and a place to sleep. The child was very grateful and promised to work hard to earn his keep. Joseph named the child Jacob. Together, Joseph and Jacob worked hard to build a better life. They saved up their money and eventually opened up a small shop. The shop was small, but it was theirs. They were finally able to make a decent living and provide for Jacob's education. Years passed and Jacob grew up to be a smart and ambitious young man. He helped out in the shop and listened intently to his father's stories about his childhood. One day, Jacob told Joseph that he wanted to travel to the city to try and make a name for himself. Joseph was worried, but he knew that Jacob was old enough to take care of himself. He gave Jacob some money and a letter of recommendation and sent him on his way. Jacob traveled to the city and started working for a local merchant. He worked hard and was eventually promoted to manager. He was now in charge of the entire store. One day, a group of thieves broke into the store and stole all of the merchandise. Jacob was devastated. He'd worked so hard to get where he was, and now everything was gone. He sat down on the floor and started crying. Suddenly, he heard a voice. It was his father. Joseph had come to visit and had heard about what had happened. He hugged Jacob and told him that everything would be all right. Together, father and son rebuilt the business. They were stronger than ever before. Joseph was proud of the man that Jacob had become. He knew that Jacob was destined for great things. And that's the story of how Joseph went from rags to riches. It's a story about hope and perseverance. No matter how difficult your situation may seem, never give up. With hard work and determination, you can achieve your dreams.